Well, more on the nominations process, the nomination numbers, I should say, the numbers of people who've been nominated by different ANC branches released today. You would have seen them. You would have already seen some views on them, and particularly the fact that it seems President Cyril Ramaphosa has received the support of twice as many branches as his main contestant, Dr. Zweli Mkhize. The same, it seems, goes for Paul Mashatile. He's received a much higher number of nominations than any other candidate. But at the same time, confirmation that it seems that if you look at the numbers for people nominated for the positions of top 6 leadership in the ANC, only one position will be occupied by a woman, once again the position of Deputy Secretary General. Professor Sethulego Matebesi is an associate professor in the sociology department at the University of the Free State. He's been watching this process very closely. Professor, good afternoon to you. Overall, does this suggest to you that the outcome of this conference is now predictable, or would you not go that far?
Well, good afternoon, Stephen, and good afternoon to your viewers. With the African National Congress, you can never be certain. A lot can still happen between now and the elective conference, but this pretty much gives many South Africans a bit of a glimpse into what they can expect. It's going to be very difficult for those commentators and anybody else who has believed that because KZN has the numbers, then it will be a whitewash once they have nominated the candidate. My stance is, why did Nkosazana Zuma lose out to Cyril Ramaphosa during the past election? And it's exactly because of the number of provincial delegates who voted for the president. And Stephen, very briefly, if I may highlight it, if you go even into the numbers, provinces like in Mpumalanga, it's almost like a whitewash, more than 227 branches, 2-0 for Mkhize. So I can't see that some delegates will overnight change their minds, even if there might be a few before the elections. But it's going to be a tall order for those who are vying for Dr. Mkhize.
If I understand the ANC's constitution on this, an ANC branch sends a delegate. That delegate has a mandate from the branch, but they're allowed to be lobbied at the conference. In other words, for there to be a change, there would have to be an awful lot of lobbying at the conference at a time when I think the ANC is being stricter about that kind of thing, and particularly stricter in terms of rules and regulations than it's ever been.
Yes, most definitely. And Stephen, we should also look, I'm privy to a few things that have been happening in the Free State. I mean, the Free State didn't have a provincial elective conference. And what would happen is then you get branch nominations. And these delegates, what they normally do, they look at the balance of power and the forces. And they will try to align them with the CR camp, but on arrival at the conference, there is a possibility that some delegates may just vote for somebody else other than what their branches actually want. It's very difficult to predict what is going to happen, but based on the numbers, one can already see, as I've indicated, that it's going to be very difficult, even if a few delegates can still be persuaded to vote for, a candidate other than what their branches are looking for. And another factor, very crucial factor, although the ANC is trying to manage that, and this is the whole game of funding, being transparent about that, but behind the scene, it's going to be very difficult to manage that particular. And at the end of the day, politics of the stomach still reign supreme within the African National Congress.
The other issue, and we were talking to Kai Satola about it a moment ago, is about gender. And the fact that once again we're going to easily have an ANC top 6 that does not have anything close to gender parity, gender equity or gender equality. None of those things will apply. 2 women being nominated for the position of Deputy Secretary General again. And he was making the point it's very hard to both be democratic and to try and force things, which you should force, which would include gender equality. How do you see that problem for the ANC? And it has, I think it's important to reiterate this, gone further than any other party in trying to do this.
Yeah, hi, Steve. I did write an op-ed 3 weeks ago where I predicted, based on some of the matters that was, in the public domain, that it seems as if gender parity will once again be regarded as secondary equality within the African National Congress. And based on these nominations, it seems as if this glorious organization, more than a century old, is trying, it's battling to implement one of its fundamental policies, and that is to see gender parity. This whole notion of having people in deputy positions, and even if you look at this, it's only for the Deputy Secretary General. That is far too little. And I think the African National Congress should have come being more deliberate to say the Deputy President for now should be a female. Or a woman for that matter, but that's unfortunately because you do have some leaders fighting for their political career, and I strongly believe that they would have questioned that to say, but once the branches have spoken, they need to oblige. But this is definitely not good for the African National Congress on this particular instance.
As I understand the election process, and this could be very important later, is that the electoral process will be in two stages. So we'll have the election for the 4 positions on possibly the first night or the second night of the conference. I don't know. We don't know yet. But that will be for the leader, for the deputy leader, and then, of course, for 2 of the other positions. But you'd have the elections, I think, sorry, got that wrong. You'd have the elections for the deputy leader and deputy secretary general afterwards. So after you know who's won the other positions. And the idea is to break up slates, but that could also lead to a greater push for gender equality. I mean, I agree, I don't think we will see major changes from the nominations list to the final results, but that splitting of the process could have changed the results there.
Yes, most definitely. But, Stephen, if you look at the policy as it stands, you need to, a nomination from the floor, more than 25 or at least 25% of the delegates can nominate a new candidate. But I can't foresee a situation where even if there is a nomination for the president position from the floor, that they will be able to contest between the 2 that have already been, nominated. It's going to be very difficult for that individual. Sometimes people do this to try and confuse the different slates, although even during today's pronouncement that there's absolutely trying to get rid of the slate politics. But at the end of the day, I strongly believe that behind the scenes, some persuasions and campaigning will take place in earnest from now going forward. And you also have a situation, if I can reflect on that, of the deputy president nominee, Paul Mashatile, who has been nominated by KZN, but on numerous occasions, having indicated that, look, he will only accept the nomination once it is final. So that in itself also tells you that he's still willing to be persuaded by other camps. But yes, I think for many people who attend this elective conference, the election of the president of the African National Congress is quite crucial. And anything else that comes afterwards, and also the Secretary General's position, and then everything else, it seems as if it's a secondary, but it is an elective conference, and all the people that will be elected will then from there onwards run and manage the African National Congress.
There's a lot more to come in, and this process, in a way, only ends when they call for nominations from the floor at the conference. Do you expect things to change there? I mean, do you think it's possible for 25% of the people in one horse, so we're looking at probably 1,200 people, to put up their hand and say, we want to do something completely different? I'm not entirely sure what would happen in the hall afterwards if that were to happen, if everybody were shocked and surprised.
No, I can't foresee that happening. One issue that will definitely come up is this whole issue of the step aside, but there will be, voices of dissent. We know the so-called renewal grouping within the African National Congress, or faction, if you want to call that, will vouch for that policy to continue, even if there's changes. Those are some of the things that you might get, issues around that. But in terms of the nomination, maybe for other positions, you might just see that some people will vouch that. But it's going to be very difficult to, get support from other provinces. What I foresee is that the so-called CR17, or it's now CR22 supporters may just sway how this conference goes. And once you've got the numbers, then it is quite easy to advance your agenda at the conference. But that will need a lot of persuasive campaigning that needs to take place, perhaps on the day, on the eve of the elective conference.
Professor Sethulego Matebesi, as always, thank you very much indeed for your time. Really appreciate it.